should I have
Welcome to Media Path. I am Louise Palanker.
And I'm Fritz Coleman.
Here at Media Path, we take a nice drone shot of the media landscape for you, and then we home in on what you're going to want to see up close. Sort of like that opening shot of the Brady house, and then cut to Mike Brady walking into the sweet, sweet smell of pork chops and applesauce. A tasty analogy, since our guest today is Christopher Knight, once a boy portraying a delightful and occasionally confused Peter Brady. Chris has grown into a confident, accomplished, and multi-talented man, and we are going to talk to him about that journey. But first, Fritz, what have you got for us?
Well, I want to talk about our contest. I'm very proud of this contest we put together.
Yeah, Dina put together
where
a contest.
Our producer Dina has been, and her team of minions has been working on this thing. But we want you to have a chance to win some product from some of our guests. For instance, we have Cindy Williams' book, Surely You Jest. We have Ira Shapiro's great book called Betrayal, which is about Mitch McConnell. We have a pair of tickets to my August 7th opening for Mark Arthur Miller in his show called Soul Searching at the Catalina Jazz Club in Hollywood. 2 tickets to that. It will be a blast. Here's how you enter. It's very easy. Just comment on the post section of our Facebook group. But you have to join first. Keep that in mind. You can't just post. You have to join first. Just search Media Path with Fritz and Weezy podcast community. Sign up to be a member of the community, and that will be it. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at mediapathpodcast@gmail.com, and Dina will answer your question. But we'd love to have you sign up because we're giving away some good tchotchkes.
Am I eligible for this contest?
I would keep you and your family.
Okay, got it. All right, so my media picks. I have a couple. We'll start with this one. It's called Mormon No More. We've got blended families on the menu, so I thought I would tell you about a documentary on Hulu called Mormon No More, which focuses on LGBTQ folks within the LDS Church. Same-sex relationships are still prohibited by Mormon elders, and that intransigence has been deadly. Rates of suicide, anxiety, and depression in gay teens are greatly higher within Mormon communities. Kids who grow up Mormon are taught that the only way to make it into the celestial kingdom of eternal life with your family members is to engage in an opposite-sex marriage, and so they do. But now gay LDS parents are leaving their marriages and the church and leaving devastated spouses in their wake. They are forming new blended families and teaching their kids that living an authentic life is what matters most. Mormon No More follows 2 LDS women who fell in love, left their husbands, and are together raising their 7 kids. That's one more than the Bradys, unless you count cousin Oliver. Their story is beautifully told, and it invites each of us to live, teach, and celebrate our truth.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've had 2 very interesting diametrically opposed views of the LDS Church, and then the fundamentalist LDS Church, what we talked about last week, which is a little darker.
Right.
Well, I have a great movie. It's Elvis. It's out in theaters now. I'm sure it'll stream in some year. I went to theater last weekend to see Elvis. This was good timing, Weezy, because you and I interviewed Sally Hodel, who was author of Elvis, Destined to Die Young. And in it, she hints at what a diabolical character Colonel Tom Parker was. Well, this movie dramatizes that. Colonel Tom, played by Tom Hanks, was not a colonel, and he was not really Tom Parker, but he was a Northern European immigrant in the United States illegally who was responsible for both the successes and the failures, who was just a dark character overseeing at one time the most famous person on the planet. Now, in the movie, it kind of seemed like cartoon villainy to me a little bit, but I guess it was true to the real Colonel Parker. Austin Butler plays an eerily right-on Elvis, from his almost feminine beauty to the physical part of his performances to his speaking voice to the songs which he sang himself with uncanny accuracy.
Wow.
Really a very talented man. This movie is another Baz Luhrmann fever dream. If you remember Moulin Rouge, it's a constant explosion of sight and sound, many times overdone, but to make a point. Luhrmann uses a device used in movies a lot lately where he takes an original song, like an Elvis song, then he does a mashup, and he morphs it into like thumping hip-hop beats. And it's kind of not all Elvis purists are going to be happy about this, but I think it kind of makes Elvis's songs contemporary. And it's pretty interesting because, you know, they've been worn out in our minds for over 50 years. There are scenes where Elvis, as a young man, is brought up in a really poverty-stricken area of Tupelo, Mississippi, and is being exposed to the power of early blues. Then he gets caught up in the redemptive spirit of the gospel music of the church. And as we know, he ended up being the first to expose white America to those genres of music. Before him, that music had been mainly found on race records or black music stations. There are Arthur Crudup and Big Mama Thornton portrayed, whose songs Elvis first covered, That's All Right Mama and Hound Dog. There are many clashes in this movie. Innocence against greed, the sacred against the profane, commerce against art, and one of the oldest stories in Hollywood. An innocent, gifted person gets bamboozled by a con man. But it's an amazing movie and beautiful, and the performances are spectacular.
And it seems like a guy like Elvis who grew up without a lot of sophistication or any sophisticated folks around him. By sophisticated, I just mean people that would understand the law and contracts and all the complexities that he's about to launch himself into, come face to face with all these big, huge decisions as the world watches. He had to rely on one guy, and he was the type of person that was going to pick a guy and stick with that guy because he would feel lost without that one guy.
And he was loyal to people that were loyal to him. You know, he had this fatal loyalty to everybody, including all of his, the Memphis Mafia that lived with him at Graceland. But he tried to quit Colonel Tom a couple of times, but Colonel Tom was a master. He got his start in the carnival, and he was a great BSer, and he just had a way of luring him back in and making it lucrative and worth his while. It was very sad, but I guess that was the dynamic. And there's a clip on YouTube that shows Dick Clark at a symposium about current music in 1998, and somebody asked him a question about Colonel Tom Parker, and he went off on him. He said this man was evil incarnate, and fascinating. But anyway, great movie, and I highly recommend it. Even if you're not an Elvis fan, it's a great piece of American music history. Absolutely.
So I have one more pick for you. It's a YouTube gem. Now, you may not know this here in America, but Sir Tom Jones is a coach on the UK version of The Voice, where he is known to, with the slightest suggestion, stand up from his coaching chair and launch into song, and it is a thing of glorious beauty. Sir Tom throws down some serious sounds, and when the Sir lays into a song, that song just gives up and says, I have been sung by my one true love, and I forevermore forsake all others. When Tom erupts into song, the audience goes completely mad, and fellow coach Jennifer Hudson pulls out her phone and begins filming as if the entire production is not being professionally recorded. She's like, ooh, man, do I have a good seat for this. Just type Tom Jones and The Voice into YouTube, and you're welcome.
One of the great singers of all time.
It's so much fun to watch him on The Voice. So much fun.
Well, we have a fantastic guest. I can't wait to talk to him.
Yes. Christopher Knight is a technology pioneer, an entrepreneur, and a businessman, but he has long since accepted that he will never outrun his Brady heritage. Chris played Peter Brady from 1969 through 74, and since then, the spin-offs and reunions just keep on coming. So let's start out by talking about your early childhood, Chris, because I found this part interesting. Your dad's an actor, and when you guys moved to Hollywood, all of you kids start going on auditions. Did you like that? It doesn't sound like it was ever your initial idea.
I feel like my early childhood hasn't ended. No, it wasn't my idea. I mean, in a very real kind of way, your parents are, as we all are, a reflection of their parents, and the world that they grew up in. And though my dad was born in the United States, his parents weren't. They were immigrants. And though I wasn't around when my dad was a boy, my recollection of my grandparents' home, my paternal grandparents' home, was that it was odd. And I now look at that with more adult eyes. And the oddity was that it was very old school. It was very European or different. It was different than my friend's home who lived by me, who perhaps didn't have immigrant grandparents.
Your grandparents,
different than my home. It was just rooted in something that was foreign to me. I would learn over years, perhaps, that was because it was rooted in their upbringing in Middle Europe. And
talk about your heritage. That's important. You're half Hungarian and half.
I don't even know if it's Hungarian. And this is the truth is that my grandfather, when I sat him down, I think it was like 85, 86, and at that time, Jesus, he was in his 90s. He lived to 103.
Oh, wow.
He came here in 2012 because he felt that war was coming. It was getting risky to be living where he was living. In that area, he couldn't point to exactly on a map because at the time we were dealing with the map is pre-Soviet Union collapse. And it was, Czechoslovakia was a inside of the Soviet sphere at that time. The area that he grew up in or was born into was Bohemia, that part of the Czech Republic as we know it today. Perhaps because the city's names had all
so
changed.
Interesting.
He was there during the Austro-Hungarian Empire and left it. Then it turned, it became a part of essentially the German sphere of influence from, the Nazi invasion, and then was taken over by the Soviets. And then now today, it's the Czech Republic. So there was a problem with names and him really knowing what the name was today for the city. So he couldn't point to the city, but the general region is that Bohemian region of the Czech Republic. What city? I don't know. My mother is a little more mysterious. She was an only child. I have like an immigration map, if you will, that was presented by, I think it was Ancestry at one time. I did a little work for them, and that I knew about my father's family. I didn't know anything about my mother's, but on it you can see the immigrants coming here to this country in the early 1900s, but indicating at the time, I guess the census taken every 10 or so years, they get to requote where they're from.
Oh,
they're not consistent with where they're from, and they're either from Russia or England.
What an interesting identity crisis to not be able to describe exactly where you're from. I mean, so much of your subconscious identity is knowing where to point to on the map. That's so interesting.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people, like especially me. I'm Jewish. All four grandparents are Jewish, and what Chris is talking about. The borders keep changing, and is it Romania? Is it Ukraine? Is it where is it exactly?
And that's my mother's family. She's, we think
So
it's Minsk or someplace over there, but her immigrant grandparents, I don't know if it was grandparents or great grandparents, but her family had been here a few more generations. But again, on the census data, I think it was from 1880. Every 10 years, they get to requote where they're from, and it's not consistent.
So they can just
right? No one's checking what they said 10 years ago. If at the time we were allies with Russia, then they were from someplace in Russia, or it was. I think it's Belarus. I mean, I believe it's Minsk. It could be Ukraine. It could be Kyiv. It's all that region.
I think they're just cosplaying their census. They're like, we're Scottish, aren't we?
Yeah, but
they ended up in England before they came to the United States.
Yeah.
And so,
but that's
England was
so
always a safe
interesting
land
because I mean he just represented something that probably plays out over all of Ellis Island and all the immigrants to this country. You sort of had to be sensitive as to what America's relationship was with the country you were coming from to make sure they said, well, you're from there, we're throwing you back out or something. That's very interesting.
Right. I mean, it's like things became very uncomfortable for German immigrants before World War I and World War II. So yeah, it's like, I'm from wherever you need me to be from. I just want to stay here.
And looking back on it too, I have no... although I'm hesitating, I say this with no hesitation, meaning that I with conviction, I believe this. I have no proof of this, of course, but that if part of my dad's medieval Catholic family, because they were ruthlessly Catholic, would have been, perhaps, they would have been Nazis if they would have remained where they were. And they probably, not that they ever shared it, or that I saw any evidence of sentiment pro-Nazi in their home. I look back on it now going, there was some strident beliefs that perhaps one could associate with them going that route.
Mm-hmm.
Very
my mom is Jewish.
Very right-wing. Yeah.
That was a big issue.
Or believing, that somehow, Anglo-Saxon humans are, superior. And then were they okay with that marriage? Do you feel like their grandparents were okay with your parents' marriage?
There was so much lore in my dad's family with these, literally part of what was unique about my grandparents' home is that my dad was the youngest of 7 born children. One, there was rumors of didn't survive, but no one had any information on him or would talk of it. 2 sisters and a brother, all older than my dad, never moved out of the house. When his family moved from Brooklyn to the United States, they moved to Burbank in like 58. Those 2 girls and one of his brothers came with them, had their own rooms, and they never moved out.
Yeah.
My dad and his 2 older brothers found a way on their own.
There's a door here somewhere. I just know it.
And it was just, and I guess I don't know if that's more old school or old European or way Catholic. I don't know.
I think that happened in a lot of immigrant families simply because that home felt more natural to them than the rest of the United States. So in a lot of immigrant families, they stay in the first home purchased. Uncles and aunts kind of stay put because they speak the old tongue there, and they're just more comfortable. The foods they cook and everything just feels more like home to them.
As I understood, it was a tradition that the oldest girl, in some cases, stayed with mom and dad to take care of them in their older age. My dad was way younger than his brothers and sisters. Literally. I can only imagine the lack of birth control being practiced, but she gave birth to my dad in 1925 when she was 43 years old, and they had a picture of the family pre-him and pre-his sister, who was born 2 years earlier than him, and they were about 13 years younger than everybody else, and that photo, it was like sort of one of those old photographs from 1920 that sort of hand painted lightly. It almost looked like a painting, but it was a painted photograph. It didn't include my dad and his sister, and they never took another family photograph. In fact, we found it in the rafters of my grandfather's house, and it was wrapped in the sports page from the Brooklyn paper in 1958. And that Brooklyn paper was announcing that the Dodgers were moving to Los Angeles, and I had to rip it apart because I didn't know what was in it. I didn't know what this thing had been stuffed up into the rafters to never be seen again, and that was because it didn't complete the whole family. So we'll just put that away. And but it was I had to burrow through this Brooklyn sports page about this historic event to realize what was in it. And
but your dad grows up an American boy, and he becomes an actor.
Well, and oddly and interestingly, he was studying architecture. He went to Catholic U, studying to be an architect. On his GI Bill, he luckily just missed fighting. He was training, and the war ended, to be. I think it was a torpedo bomber. I think they had a life expectancy of 1.5 missions. So, but he never, he was studying flight when the war ended. But he still got a GI Bill, and he was educated. He went to Catholic U to be an architect, and as it turned out, the architectural students had to build the sets, and that was his introduction to theater. Oh. And my dad, being quite a looker for by his own admission, he was a lifeguard for umpteen years in Jones Beach back there in New York. Outdoors kind of guy, virile. He saw himself quite the matinee idol. But he was studying to be an architect. And then he saw what he wanted to do when he watched other actors on stage getting all that attention.
Wow.
That was for him.
Yeah.
So, he and Catholic U had an incredible theater arts department. So that's what he did. And I grew up in a family, though I was born in New York, we were raised here, because my dad, as an actor, to whom theater was acting and everything else wasn't, but that he would be excused for pursuing making money in other mediums because now he had a family. He wouldn't do that before having a family because that was not what you would do if you were a real actor.
Did he celebrate your career when you lowered yourself and went into television?
He did. He did. He was very warm, much more so. I got a comparison, much more so than my mom. She had issues with it. She had issues with it because she was an artist, Parsons grad. I didn't realize how much of an artist she was because she just put everything away when their children were born. Because the act of life in having kids and more than she could afford or take care of, was so frightening to her. There was no time for anything else. And being an only child, I don't think she really understood what it was to have multiple children, and they kept coming.
Did she feel like
she couldn't control them?
And you've described your home life as being somewhat chaotic. Do you think your mom felt embarrassed or defensive about the Brady family depicting something she wasn't able to create?
Absolutely. Right on the money. Exactly. It was frustrating to me. Why, you as a child you start out with your parents' sentiment as you're younger, and then of course either you continue and you double down on it because you're totally in their camp, or you're like me, you're opposed at some age to their views. And you set out to make your own, but you start with like opposite views, if you will. And I knew that the Brady Bunch was simplistic, clearly, and silly. We were playing characters 2-3 years younger than ourselves, and in itself, the show was sort of a throwback to the family shows of the 50s. I mean, it's a throwback to Ozzie and Harriet. It's sort of the blended version of Ozzie and Harriet. And I was a year from being drafted. Vietnam is going on all around us during the shooting of the show. The show is being produced 69 through 74. Those were tumultuous years, but none of that was dealt with in the show. So at the time, I was decided my life, in this family was uniquely different than the life I led outside of the set. But at the same time, my mom just despised its simplicity and its the lack of realism in it. But over time, I also realized that, this environment seems to be healthier. And I'm working in Hollywood than the environment I get at home.
So she didn't understand the mission of American television to be escapist. It didn't have to reflect reality. Maybe it's to take you out of the reality of your lives. And on some level, it took her out of the reality of her life and said, okay, well, we're not this, but for a minute I can fantasize.
Yeah, she said it was unrealistic and everything had to be realistic. And I think part of that was because she wasn't able to provide that for us. And in her defense, I mean, it was a struggle. My dad was an actor who decided that he could work in television because it wouldn't be below him if he had a family to feed. So that's why we came to California. I mean, he was in New York. He wanted to be a stage actor, and there was very little work back there. So he came out. We drove cross country in 1958 for Thanksgiving. My brother was a year older than me. I was 2. He was 3. Can you imagine that? This is before the highway system. This is before seatbelts. And we're driving cross country to spend a week with my grandparents because they had moved out to California. And my dad was going to investigate what work there was in this new industry that was called television.
Yes.
It doesn't seem like it's going away, and there's work there for actors. So my dad was going to investigate that. We never went back. Moved back to New York. My mom says my attitude as a 2-year-old completely changed, and I can understand why. I mean, we were living in a 1-bedroom flat, barely making ends meet in the Upper East Side. And then we moved to California where there's open spaces and the weather's better. And my mom said, your attitude sort of changed somewhere around the Grand Canyon as we got into Arizona. There's something, probably very truthful about that. It probably did, because it's like my brother literally was trying to kill me from the time we were infants. Ira and I are, wonderful friends today. We've had our ups and downs throughout the years. But he admits that, recognizing now, because we shared this small environment in a crib together, That was what he was trying to do. He was so pissed off that I came around at it as an infant, that he would do anything he could to annoy me or break things like my fingers, and other things. And my dad, being from Brooklyn, he raised pigeons. Through raising pigeons, we came to California. We raised pigeons in California. He taught us the pigeon raising. But it's interesting when you're raising birds like that, how much, the idea of a pecking order stems from the nest, and how birds survive. I mean, it's the nest of birds is as big as the season provides. In other words, they're not all going to survive.
Okay.
And my dad thought that. He literally thought that. He didn't think we'd all live.
Wow.
Survival of the fittest.
It's going to be survival of the fittest. It was the setup.
An heir and a spare.
Yeah.
But you got your pigeons apart on the Brady Bunch.
Right. I got some sanctuary that I was able to go off to. I look back on it. My sister is 3 years younger than me, and my brother, bless his soul, he's not around anymore. He was 7 years younger than me. I'm working and I'm 11. That means he's 4. My mom was with me.
Talk about that. So you moved out here. You spent too much time in the car with your younger brother, and then
my older brother.
Your older brother. And what launched you onto your career? When did you start the audition process?
Getting back to the whole reason for working us is that I guess that was what happened to them was they were kids. The parents, put them out to work. You literally rent your kid out to a family who needs something done, for a while. Happened to his brother, as the story goes. For a month, they had to live with another family because they were building something or needed some help somewhere. And he was needing to repay the family for something that he had destroyed or stole or something. Anyways, we had to go up to another family. And that's the way they worked amongst themselves, and so my dad's idea was, well, you can, at 8 years old, 7 years old, we get you an agent. There's nothing going to stop you. I mean, there's no resume required at 7, right? Mm-hmm. It's literally, excuse the expression, shit against the wall. Mm-hmm. We'll just see. We'll put you out on those interviews, and if you get work, you get work. If you don't, okay.
So what is it about your personality that gets you the job?
I don't know. My mom thought it was going to be my brother. He was the outgoing one. I wasn't. I was sort of internal and, I guess in her mind, sullen. I watched everything. But I was introverted. But something happened inside those rooms because my brother and I went on every interview together for 2 years. They don't bring you in the room at the same time. They interview you separately like they do every other kid there. But I got the very first interview I went on, and then the third interview, and it just kept going like that. And he never worked.
Oh my gosh! How did that affect
you? For 2 years, he never worked, and then finally said, "Why do I have? This is not working out for me. Do I have to keep doing this?" And my mom said no. I guess my dad was disappointed in that because, his opportunity was maybe in the future if he would have continued at it. But I hated going. I mean, what kid would want to go on interviews? I was a kid who loved my friends. They were my sanctuary and actually protectors against my brother all through school as well. And we make plans for the afternoon. It's sort of, I lived a Huck Finn kind of life out there in the West Valley. It was wide open spaces. And, my mom literally said, "Don't come home till dinner." Go play on the freeway. All those expressions. Wow. Not that she meant that, but there was none of what we have today in the way of that worry that a mother has. And I did. I had this incredible freedom and explored like crazy. But
does your father ever get work in television?
Yeah, a little bit. But he also worked at Dodger Stadium. He worked at Brooks Brothers. He did all the things an actor does, except for wait tables. He never had that job. Mm-hmm. Highly educated. I laugh at it. It's a cruel reality that actors are the most educated homeless people there are.
Wow.
Or near homeless. And he had an Artful Dodger kind of streak to him, about right and wrong. Rules were, meant to be bent to his favor. He was a survivor. It was there wasn't enough resource to go around, and that's what caused a lot of that angst.
What was your first job in television?
It was a Purex commercial.
Yeah.
Purex commercial, sliding into home plate. So like what? I mean, how many kids go on that interview, and what was wrong with everyone who didn't get the role? I mean, they didn't even really test your sliding ability because you're in an office, you know. So it couldn't be your skill set. And I got it. You know, I can't tell you what it was. And I don't even remember the interview. I don't remember the initial interview for the Brady Bunch, but why would I? I mean, you go on so many you just forget all about them. Not that I have to remember the Bradys is because it turned into a success, but there was no anticipating that it would have been the one to stay on the air and then continue to be sort of like this evergreen over, after 50 years. So,
well, the Brady brand has enjoyed success in TV, film, stage, animation, and music. And so the next logical step was podcasting. So talk
Yes.
about the Real Brady Bros, because that's a show that really delves into the minutia of things that most people don't remember about their childhood, but you are consistently not only reminded of, but asked about.
Right. Well, what's interesting is most people have, until they go back through photos, forget their childhood until something sparks a memory. Mm-hmm. And yes, I have this show to help that spark. And thinking that, well, it's had 53 years on the air, that all those sparks have sparked, was how I entered this. But no, in fact, they spark also just in conversation with somebody else who was there, whose eyes were viewing different things,
Right.
or whose processes recorded different events, uniquely their way. And we get to share, our perspectives on what we were in, what we saw, what we did, how we view it now. And it's a hoot. I never expected it to be this much fun, or that there would be this much revelation in it, in doing the podcast. And this podcast was actually the idea of our old friend, Ed Mann.
Ed Mann, who was my partner at Premier Radio, my brother for life. And we, like you created the Brady Bunch with your 5 siblings. Ed and I, with a few other siblings, created Premier Radio Networks. We don't have a theme song, but that could be in the works, at a moment. But yeah, Ed and I have a lot of wonderful memories together, creating something innovative in the radio space. And he's a perfect fit for you guys. I love the episodes that he hosts, where it's a Q&A.
The Q&A, right?
Because he's got that great radio voice.
He does.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that people's interest in your podcast and in the Bradys in general is for a couple of reasons? First of all, we have all these great new nostalgia channels like Me, which is introducing the Bradys to an all new several generations of people, but also in the general malaise in which we find ourselves in this country, people are drawn back to those warmer, family
Simpler
shows where there's more black and white. There's more, at the end of the day, everybody argues, but it's a family sitting around the table and we all love one another. Do you think there's a little bit of that drawing people back toward those great memories?
Yeah, and we've experienced these cycles, mini cycles, and I think right now we're in a major cycle. We are as turbulent, maybe even more so, as a society today as we were when this show was conceived and licensed to go to air in 68, 69, with all that was going on at that time. And I think there's a reason for that, and that is because the more people find the outside world dangerous or distrust it, the more they want to fall back into thoughts of childhood. That if it wasn't trustworthy, we romanticize it as though it was, because there was an innocence in our childhood. There's some kind of need for us to find that innocence again, and rest from what our mind wanders through. in the space outside the walls of your home. And I think that's the reason for the success of the show too. And the reason it's continuing to be evergreen. Firstly, it's because it's almost last of a genre of the innocent type of depiction of family. That throwback to the 50s. And that 50s era was really ideal. I mean, if you think about it, it's United States wasn't up until that point, a superpower, and all of a sudden it's got, it's growing like crazy. The automobile is tying people together. We're finishing, this, our ribbon of highway. Our being was in that time was about purity, and there was no reason to believe that we couldn't be anything we wanted, and there was so much positivity in that era.
Promise.
I think everybody has tried to relive it, ever since. And though, I think comedy is much better today than it was back then. There was a lot of controls placed on comedy. The fact is it was more innocent back then, and there was something nice about it. I mean, we reapproach it every Christmas. We all, as even adults, get into the idea of that innocence again with Santa Claus and the holidays, and then we leave it. We leave it for 11 months.
But you know what? It was a safe haven, especially in contrast to where we are now. But you didn't avoid topics that were in the forefront of people's consciousness, like you joined the military in one episode.
Didn't at all. No, that was later. Yes, right. Yeah, that was with
and
the
also,
reunion.
You went into real family problems like Marsha with a alcohol issue there for a while.
But that's the reunions. That's not the original.
Those are the reunions.
I know, but
the question that I would have, if we would have continued, we did 5 seasons is all originally, and the reason for that is in part was because it's a kid's show about kids, about young kids, about that innocence that really only plays, or you can play with kids who are requiring that kind of innocence in their home to be healthy. As you grow up to be an adult, you cannot continue, playing that and be a healthy adult. So you have to grow up. I don't know what the show would have done with us. If it never went off the air and tried to just be on for 20 years, I mean, the show would have had to have morphed. So when coming back to these reunions, they updated it with the current events that were of the time, because we're adults now, and you can't ignore the current events. But if you go back to the original show, there was no room for current events because it wasn't about what happened outside the front door.
Well, Greg might have been.
It was
smoking.
about what happens inside of that door. That's what a kid's issue. That's where a kid's initial community is, and what they're trying, the place that they're trying to figure their place in.
But
you first do it there.
Do you feel that Robert Reed maybe had some influence over the reunions to get into more issues that actual people face, or is that just something that needed?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it was Bob Reed. I think it was a network. I mean, the networks recognize, why are they bringing it back? Well, it's still got this popularity. They won't die. I mean, every network is looking to leverage success. So it's a business. So if they think that if they're putting it on the air, it's because they think they're going to get ratings. And if they're going to get ratings, it's because there's something in the air about that innocence being needed again. And that's why I call them mini cycles. I mean, there's been these reunions every 7 years, and now I call it a major cycle because it's like an overwhelming need now. But in those mini cycles, you got Gordon Gekko, you got other issues that are pulling us apart slightly, we sort of a need for a reprieve, and all of a sudden the Bradys are resurrected to display that, except for it's not the kids show anymore. It's always sort of an adult cut on it. So it isn't exactly what we remember from our childhood because, well, we're not kids anymore. And we really, unless we are all having our own family and we're dealing with those kids, could it even approach being that innocent?
Well, what I really love with the podcast and with the renovation show was getting to know the real people, your real actual personalities, because you kind of get a window into why you were each cast, because everyone is just so likable, and you guys are just kind of like jump off the screen. You're just really charming, good-natured folks. And you could see why Sherwood cast you kids, because everyone has just such a wonderful personality. And that's, I think,
well, thank you.
To me, explains the longevity of the show. It's you guys. So tell us how you enjoyed the renovation show, and if that was fun to just get to be yourself.
It was remarkable. I mean, here it is. The network has bought a home. They have no idea what to do with it, because it wasn't like they had an idea. It was they were reading an article in a paper that the Brady home was for sale, and they said we should buy it. And somebody in that creative meeting at HGTV said we should buy it, and somebody else said, yeah, we should. And they did. I mean, it had to move on it quickly. It moved far too quickly for them to conceive of what they were going to do with it once they owned it. So they were working backwards. But we met with them, because at one point after they owned the home, that they thought, okay, so now what are we going to do with this? So that they needed to then go do a little Brady history, and brought us together, those who were in Los Angeles, to just discuss their purchase of the home, and not that they were telling us what was going to happen with the home, but they wanted us somehow involved. But before then, we just sat down and talked the Brady in the house, and they didn't realize that the 50th anniversary of the Bradys, of the airing, was the next season, the season that this thing would come out in. Oh. It was like, let me take a note of that. Okay. So the whole idea just sort of snowballed into a bigger and bigger project, because it was just really well timed. And what became very real for us when we started the production is reality has, though it might be real moments, it has constructs that are thought through before putting the camera in front of anything. Mm-hmm. Otherwise you wouldn't have really. You just have a mashup.
Still has to be produced.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're thinking of arcs and concepts that they're going to move on. And one of the concepts that they started with, and they were dedicated to, was that we're going to see this house and open the front door, and it was going to be like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like it was no longer looked like our house. And it was like, guys, we didn't even know about this place. We didn't know where this was, and we know the inside isn't going to look like our set. So this is reality. But it needed to be played that way for the sake of the audience. But in doing that, what they were presenting to us is the way the audience saw us. And to a person in our cast, none of us knew where that house was. We all started living in LA. I know today, I think there's 3 of us who live out of state. But 4 of us grew up in the Valley. And none of us knew where that house was and didn't ask where it was for years. Wow. I know for me, it wasn't until about 95.
Oh, my.
When I realized, I bet you Lloyd knows where that house is. Lloyd Schwartz.
Yeah.
Sherwood Schwartz's son.
Did they use a crane to get those establishing shots?
Yes.
Or was there an office building?
Oh, I mean on our show?
Yeah, on your show.
There wasn't, if you notice, it really doesn't move. It's literally almost a photograph. They did bring cameras out there and put it up on a ladder.
Okay.
And take that shot, but it's an establishing shot.
Mm-hmm.
We joked about there's no way the house that we walked through, the set that we walked through, could be in that house. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't look. I mean, mom and dad's bedroom is down the hallway in the back. How could it be out front? Because that window out front is obviously somebody's room. Uh-huh. There wasn't a window out front. They put the set dressers put a faux window up to make that house. It's a 1-story house. It's split level, California ranch style split level house. You saw it on HGTV's project. But when they took the stock shot, it was just a faux window placed on that barn siding right in front to make it look like that was a bedroom.
Okay.
There wasn't one. And I mean, literally, and this is part of what we deal with on the podcast. It brings into question, like, how did it all come together? Brady episode number 1, the wedding episode, the honeymoon. The boys are depicted living in a different house. They're not living in that house. they didn't have that house. Why they didn't have that house? Because that house was a big set with an investment that only comes with a series that got a green light, not with a pilot.
But you know what? Before you continue, I think you have to set this up for people who are not show business savvy. That was an exterior of a house. They find one that sort of tells the story of the Bradys. But the show itself was shot where?
At Paramount.
Paramount Studios on a big old long stage. Yeah.
One of their biggest stages, and we took the whole thing up, and it's all sets are on one floor. The stairway clearly goes up and then it dead ends. So if you're an actor going off to the boys' bedroom, you'd go up the stairs. That shot would cut. We'd disappear around and stop. Then they show us walking either down the hallway or just into the boys' room. Mm-hmm. But that boys' room was somewhere further down the set. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a second floor that we shot on.
So
there wasn't a real house. There wasn't a real sky. There was no. I mean, clearly looking at that backyard, it wasn't outside. You can see the shadows from the trees, in 45 different directions.
So even your driveway was indoors.
Yes.
When Mike would pull in.
Mm-hmm.
That was all indoors.
Big enough set that you could drive cars. As long as you turned them off.
So you'd go up
without
the stairs.
Too much carbon monoxide.
Yeah. So you'd
set.
go up the stairs. They'd say cut, and you'd walk back down the stairs.
And so we weren't just stopped up there. But they wouldn't photograph us walking back down. But then, if the scene is to continue in one of the bedrooms upstairs, then they reset a camera in the boys' room, and then show us coming into the boys' room. And then when put together, of course, it gives you the flow and represents that. The boys' bedroom's upstairs because you walked upstairs to get into it. Nonetheless, that's a set. That's what we knew. That's the environment that we were in. And though it was home, the set was the home, right? It wasn't let's just say the set, the sound stage was the home. The set was inside of the sound stage. The whole thing was the home. And it was a piece of that sound stage. That was our environment. The audience at home over 50 years has come to know us living in that home to such a degree, even if they're from, the entertainment industry and know how this works, you lose track of the fact that we didn't really live there or that we didn't all live together. I mean, just a funny aside here. So at one point during the I don't think it was 2010, the reality craze, there was somebody had an idea about doing something for Harrah's. I think it was a Harrah's thinking about backing a reality show that could help advertise their hotel, and they wanted to theme all these hotel rooms. And one of the hotel rooms in theme that they were wanting to or contemplating building or showing on television was something like the Brady Room. So somebody's reaching out to see if there'd be interest. And I'm thinking, okay, so the question goes, okay, so what you want to, it's going to be a hotel, but it's going to be done like the Brady house. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, and then what are we going to do there? My question, well, you live there. Okay. And then do what? Well, just be the Bradys, be you guys. You realize we're not a family. We don't live in a home together. It was like Long Quiet. It was like,
oh my God.
It was, but we think you do, so we'll just do that. I go, but that was scripted. I realized there was an effort to making us a family.
How did this person get into a position of responsibility?
Well, it never went anywhere. I mean, this
and now let me ask you this. You said
America trying to do television.
Yes, exactly.
To benefit themselves was backward.
You brought up a good point. You're not a family, but talk about the family that you were, not on script, but off script. You worked with other kids. It was a kids show presented by kids. You worked together all day. You went to school on set all day. You spent 8, 12 hours a day. How was that? How was that having all that youth on the set? And was it hard? Was it like a real family? What was the vibe?
Well, I think it was exceptional. So I wouldn't, if I had children, I wouldn't let them be in show business until they're really 18, not because of my personal experiences. I know it sounds odd, but the reason is I don't think that they're going to find themselves in a Brady Bunch-like environment I got lucky. Number one, because it was a show about kids. There was 6 of us. There was almost a critical mass of us children. Mostly when you're a kid in a show that lasts any length and you're growing up, you're an appendage to an adult environment. That's really not about you. Schwartz wanted it to be a kid-friendly environment. In fact, I'm very lucky that he had this concept for the characters, because it certainly wouldn't have been a member of the cast had he been looking for actors. He didn't want actors. Pretty clear to me in looking at the shows today and some of the writing, he didn't like actors very much because of, they were hard to work with. He wanted just real kids. And who he could then get performances out of. He wasn't interested in the performance. I'm working with very, very limited memories of my interviews, but I don't believe any of the interviews required reading a scene.
Wow.
Or any acting whatsoever. It was like, give me a Matchbox, toy, and which one do you like best? It's just, having a conversation with a kid is what ultimately drove to the selections that you see. I had very little experience speaking. As a kid, I worked a lot, but talking was very difficult for me. I was introverted, and getting anything out in a sequence, a little ADD would be the reason I would ultimately discover caused me to blurt everything out, as it all wanted to come out at one time. So it was lucky that what Sherwood wanted is real kids, and he wanted a real environment for them so that it was wholesome for them. And on a kid's set, managed appropriately by the exec, there's more restrictions for the adults, right? There's profanity is held to a minimum degree, so there's more restrictions on being maybe as adult as one could be in an environment like that. They certainly didn't stop people from smoking back then. There was smoking on sets and so forth, but there was just it was a cleansed environment. But one of the benefits to then all the adults working on behind the scenes and on the set is the hours were limited, because government required us to be done in our 8 hours. So there was nothing they could do they weren't going to go overtime. Now they would do the adult scenes, if there were any in a show, after the kids had been dismissed for the day. Like the Mike and Carol scenes would be done after, 6 o'clock. If we had an 8 o'clock call, had to be wrapped and out by 5. If it was a 9 o'clock call, most of them were 9 o'clock calls, out by 6. And there was no stretching that. And if it was during the school season, they had us less. They had of that 8 hours, 3 of it had to be schooling. So but for those working around it, it meant that they weren't going to have to work all these overtime hours. So for those who were not needing the extra money from overtime and wanted to manage their own lives at home, it was a very measured show to do. It was predictable in that regard, because some of the hours in show business can be rather ugly. You work 12 hours, 14 hours a day, but we're working 8 hours, 9 hours a day. And that was what these individuals working on our show wanted. So they accepted the some of the restrictions because it was a childlike environment, but at the same time they were more family people themselves, and that was the reason why they wanted the predictability in hours. And it was like there were 6 of us, a little critical mass of kids, but we had all these adults around that we either turned into an extension of us, or that gave us an experience around adults
I'm
that
fascinated
most kids don't
by
get.
The fact that Sherwood wanted actors with no experience.
He didn't say inexperienced. He didn't want
Polished
actors. Now
actors.
that doesn't mean, because Barry had quite a bit of experience, but he didn't want them to come off actory.
That was my question. How do you direct children that don't have a lot of speaking, acting experience? That must require a certain skill on a director's part.
I'm not certain that most kid actors, at least through 10 or 12, would have the capacity to act the way an adult would be trained to act. So even if they had some schooling to be an actor, I I didn't, but I don't believe that you teach a child the things that you teach an adult. The depth of what goes into bringing a character to life.
But I mean, so
the experience when a kid has is just literally the experience of knowing your lines. You gotta
line
walk
by
and
line
talk.
and nurse them through,
and you got to hit marks, and you got to do stuff, and it's about playing, and it's about playing a different kind of way. It's not just but most kids are actually kind of gifted at play acting, right? Until they're
they're old enough to think about it.
Well, exactly, and that's part of why the old statement, that the actors don't want to work with children or animals, outside of the fact that that animals might make you work forever trying to get an acceptable cut. With kids, I mean, how do you the kid can upstage an adult without even trying, with no experience. The kid can.
I think one of the healthier aspects of this show, as opposed to even Leave It to Beaver, where there were, two children. Well, sometimes it'd be friends on the set. But if you read like Ron Howard's book, like he really looked forward to the days when he was going to be in a classroom and there'd be other kids there. But you guys had a peer group. You had a built-in peer group that I think was healthier ecosystem within which to grow up.
And then you look at the ages we were. Those really formidable years where we depicted these characters and worked together leads to where we are now, and what you, I believe, perceived in watching HGTV's Brady Renovation is our relationships with one another are totally real. I mean, because I've known Barry and Mike, for 53 years. I the only people on this planet that I'm in touch with that I've known longer are my own sibs. So we're foxhole buddies of sorts, because it's like, our experience was owned by very few. And we had Bob and we had Florence and we had Anne as examples, and they were all different, providing us with sort of a measure of example. And then we had all the other individuals on the set, all being adults, who were sort of like aunts and uncles to all of us. And I mean, I remember quite really, I think it was in the first season, we had our Christmas episode, and I marveled at what Christmas was like on the set that year. And that, I'd laugh at it later, knowing that Sherwood Schwartz was throwing us Christmas, and he's Jewish, he doesn't probably celebrate Christmas. He celebrates Hanukkah. But it was a much more kind of festive Christmas than we had at home.
Wow.
Now, mind you, as I say these things to our audience, I don't want to be negative or sounding negative toward my house. I just had this. I had two homes. I had some place to compare what home was like, and it happened to be television and a television series. So yeah, maybe it's unfair because it was going to be invested in to be a bigger event than the Christmases that we had at home. But it gave me an example of what you could aspire to.
But you would see everybody's parents on the set and get to be able sort of to compare, what your family unit was like as opposed to all the other 5 different kids whose parents probably came and went.
You got to know the mothers.
Yeah, the mothers.
Because the mothers all too. Except for Barry's mom was around for a year or two, and then he was was able to drive. Mom didn't have to be there as long as there was another one, and it was my mom that could be assigned his guardianship while he was there. Of course, we also had an incredible welfare worker in Frances Whitfield, who was also our teacher when we were in school up till 8th grade. She was Mother Teresa. She was just another of these wonderful parental guardians. And we were just very lucky in all the players that we had around us, and that we had each other, and that the show was about what it was about. Mm-hmm. I mean, the show was about, kids finding their place.
And solving problems.
Yes. Yeah,
and finding resolution.
And having it done so in a way that it's respectful to the kids and the adults. It wasn't at the expense. It wasn't like we had, the comedy leaped from, there being somebody that needed to be blind or stupid.
But if you're going to have an experience that you learn from it.
Yeah. I mean, and I realize how much I've learned from it, not at the time it was going on, but looking back on it, I'm going, geez, who am I today is in part relative to those experiences. And that's what's so unique about this, because I don't think you would say to to your own child, let's get you into show business because that's where you're going to find real health.
Right.
So you were one of, I don't want to say the fewest people, I don't know what the numbers are, but one of those fortunate people who was able to walk across this bridge from intense child stardom to a successful and creative adult life. You have many skills in the business world, and kind of describe what you did after your overall show business career.
I would find out when I was 30 some odd years old that I had ADD, and you don't have late onset ADD, ADHD. It's you've had it since you were a child. I get to look back on that. Looking back on your childhood, it's hard to see ADD in photographs because it needs motion, but you can watch I watch me now and all that stuff that is clearly a result of the ADD that I had. It's the twitching. It's the, ask me to stay still when it's, I'll stay still, but the energy is going to come out in some frenetic, odd kind of way. My speech patterns and so forth, I see it all. I didn't know what that was at the time, but that bit that's in me is that I call the squirrel, right? Your attention is always at something that's in front of you. Helped, when all of a sudden that chapter in my world ended, I was interested in school. I mean, like Ron Howard writes about, I was looking forward to being with my peers, learning stuff. I was always very much into science and engineering. That's what I wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to be an astronaut or, a scientist of some sort. I saw myself in a lab coat. Anyway, so I was just naturally curious about everything around me. So it was very easy to make a transition into something else because, whatever crossed my path, I was interested in. But when the computer came around into my personal life, and this is like 85, it helped transform me as a person because I was now a young adult struggling with whatever this was, my own personal manner of organization that was haphazard and unable to be bound. Focused. And the computer helped me. Yeah. The computer put everything in a place that I could read. It corrected my spelling, which I was horrid at. Yeah. It didn't, unlike my mom, it didn't judge me for not knowing how to spell.
Let me tell you a funny story.
It got it corrected.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a personal story about exactly what you're talking about. My older son, who is 35 years old now, was diagnosed early on with ADHD, and we had to, it was really affecting his life. We had to take him out of regular high school and put him in a special school. And he was diagnosed. I went through a long battery of tests with a psychologist who specialized in ADHD. And the school where this boy ended up had classes for parents of ADD children. So it was a 6-week class, and we would go once a week on Wednesday. And at the end of the class period, six weeks, I went to the teacher and I said, I just feel like I should pay you double the tuition for this class because I learned more about myself in this class than I did about my son. I mean, I knew my son's problem because they were officially diagnosed. But everything, all of the syndromes, all of the lifestyle weirdnesses and problems I had were all because I myself was ADHD, but they didn't have the names for it when I was growing up. They called it, you have bad reading comprehension or something like that. It
was always an insult, like you're a daydreamer, and you're lazy, you're not trying.
Yeah. Anyway, it was such a revelation to me, but that didn't come into my life until I was like 45 years old. But it was, I thought, wow, it answered so many questions about my past. And it sounds like you had a similar circumstance.
Exactly the same experience. Yeah. And then everything else made sense. Mm-hmm. That was sort of like dark closeted because people didn't need to know about the struggles that you were having because they didn't see them because you learned to compensate for them in odd kind of ways. Mm-hmm. But you were kind of aware where it was that you were going to step out too far into the light, and fall off the ledge. Reading was my big thing. I mean, because my parents were both really smart people. Mm-hmm. Highly educated and expected that for their children. So we, I was raised in an educated environment, and though they paid very little attention to our grades and so forth, we always, all of us got good grades. And I think I'm the only one in our family that had this ADHD thing. But I do believe my mom had something. My dad might have had something.
Right,
yeah, you don't know.
right,
And they didn't know
know.
it was undiagnosed. But just to put a third act on this thing, the beauty is now, and I'm really proud of where schools have gone, because the awareness about this particular disorder has been raised so much that now schools are, especially public schools, are insisted on adhering to certain things, like the children who are officially diagnosed have to be given longer to test. They can be tested outside the classroom in another environment. They have to be given longer to do projects. So society's become very, very aware of this and is trying to boost these children a little bit, which is wonderful. Certainly not.
Well, I think there's a great value in people that have these kind of thought patterns, because they think differently, and as a result of thinking differently, they can arrive at conclusions and at the answer to problems that no one else even saw yet as a problem.
Ingenuity, problem solving.
I think part of it is it's always been around. I mean, our awareness is what it is because we're now kind of aware of it, and we're not. We recognize that not everyone is built with the same formula, and I have to believe, because something physical is a great moderator of it, but we don't live those lives anymore. It stems out of the person who would see the lion, or could sit there for 8 hours watching for them, without getting their focus destroyed. Is that person, so there's a value to them. It's a matter of finding where that value is in the workplace.
And your coping mechanisms often drive you to great success. Our friend Henry Winkler is dyslexic, Jay Leno's dyslexic, and they talk very openly about how their brain had to morph around these ideas, and it exercised muscles in the other part of the brain that led them to great success.
Yeah,
I'm highly dyslexic. That was the first thing I suffered from. But I thought maybe I'm going to keep this quiet before people realize that I got a problem. But I knew I could read. I just weird. You couldn't get my eyes out of something I was interested in. And this is the thing, because a lot of kids, a lot of boys, they might have no reading problem whatsoever. When it comes to a comic book, you can't feed them enough. But you give them, Tale of Two Cities like me, and I'll be turning the first 4 pages forever, realizing I didn't get anything out.
And I think what happens is, like, the more creative you are, when you're looking at something that doesn't interest you, your creative brain goes off in a creative, interesting direction, and you don't remember what you just read because you're just always creating.
I remember just forcing myself to put my finger next to the words and go through. And then like, I have no idea what I just read.
That was my son's problem. He was diagnosed with, and the doctor explained it beautifully. It's called a gateway disorder, where you read something, and your brain, because of biology and electricity and all kinds of things, doesn't put this information where it's supposed to go. So he could read the same paragraph 5 times in a row and not remember one thing about what he had just read. And they called it a gateway. It's your brain not being able to put it in the right compartments.
Because he had something better to think about. That's all.
Well, I know that one of the downsides of what I have, or the way that it expresses itself, is the immersion. It's you get in so you can't get out. You can't stop. It's the chitty bang bang. You're the mad scientist because you're on something, right? And it's where you're in a zone,
right?
And it's disruptive to leave it. And I cannot go back. If you ask me to write a paper on me, and I don't finish it in one sitting, the next time I come back to it, what I wrote is not right anymore. It's like I can't get to that same spot again.
Okay.
So I gotta, I don't know how to like it or use it in the space I'm now in.
That's really interesting.
So it almost needs to be and that's, worthless. Yeah,
but it's like, I've learned too much for this to make sense ever again. Now I have to start over.
I got to say that differently now. And I'm not sure exactly why, but
No, I understand.
But I can rewrite something. I can, as a friend used to say, beat it to pate. I just keep rewriting it or elaborating on it, and that's why science to me is a lot more rudimentary.
So talk about science and your life and what you're doing and the creativity you're adding to the planet now. Talk about.
Well, so I did the computer thing for 20 years and found that it was my thing. It was my ability without a science degree or an engineering degree to be in with all my friends who were scientists and engineers, and amongst them developing and creating product, whether it be hardware and or software, throughout that arc of the personal computer until the 2001 when I finally needed a rest from it. Had taken a number of companies public or out of existence. Who knows where it's going to end up.
Acquired.
The exciting ride. And for me, I saw, there's a lot of this high-tech industry is very much like the entertainment industry. It's just as wild. It's just as crazy. And it's those on the creative side. Talk about, the ADD bunch. The engineers are, it's all on them. They're the stars, and you got to figure out how to harness that. And I was a little bit more adept at harnessing that because I was kind of one of them, and also not coming at it from a point of view of like business might or did initially, which is that they have to conform. You get more out of the creative sorts by letting them work their way, and recognizing that there's a value to that, and having the sympathy that I did. So I ended up managing engineers, which was interesting because they're programmers, and I have no idea if what they're telling me is truthful. I don't program.
You're also very philanthropic in your nonprofit work. Talk about that in one particular.
Oh, that is the Brady lunch pail. I couldn't see it where it was. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
you
do
have it.
She still carries lunch.
Well, I tend to.
It still has sour milk in there.
People know the Bradys, trust the Bradys, and I'm invited to do this, that, and the other endlessly, as I'm sure you are. And there's just so much time you have in a day. And if I am going to get involved with a cause, it's easier for me to be involved than not be involved. But then not too many, because that will just sink you. But then again, I'm a little bit hesitant to be involved with a cause unless I really know I'm comfortable with how much of that which is being raised goes to.
Well, one in particular is the one, the spinal cord injuries in
that's
Massachusetts.
Journey Forward out of Boston. There was I was contacted or having a conversation with a friend, his actor living here in LA at the time. This is back in 14 years ago now. So 2005, 2006, and he's from Boston. He's got the Boston accent. It dawned on him. He said, "Wait, my brother's got an event coming up. He needs a host for," and I'm a terrible host, but the kind of host they're talking about is just somebody to be there, not to organize, not an MC, but a person who they could advertise around, and you help support the event, talk up the event, do the PR for. And what's your brother? What's the thing for? What's his nonprofit? Well, it turns out, at 19, his brother, the youngest of his large Catholic, Irish Catholic family, dove into a pond one summer night, and it wasn't deep where he dove, and he was a they say a dependent quadriplegic is what it was immediately diagnosed as, meaning that he might not be able to even feed himself from that point forward. And I mean, the story right there is because that's available to all of us. It's not like you have to have a particular chromosomal condition to worry about X or Y. This is something that can happen to any one of us. Yeah. And I like to think of myself as a sport, a physical person that needs a life of usefulness physically. And to think that could happen is like, what would you do? How would you handle it? And he's 19 at the time this happens. A ball player, had a promising possible career as a baseball player. And now all of a sudden, overnight, and he's the youngest in the family, which, there's not a lot of extra resources, and the world turned upside down. Anyway, so he, through his own stubborn brilliance, wouldn't take the diagnosis sitting down. Literally, they told him to sit in a chair. And he said, look, if I told you to sit in a chair for 10 years, not hurt yourself, even you that has no spine problem, you'd never get out of it. And he's so right. It's like the medical profession, and as it handles spinal cord injuries, is so backward. But it's backward perhaps because of the cost related to those who encounter spinal cord injury and or disease of spinal cords. So, but what he did is he investigated. It took him, he was like little steps. Initially, just tying shoes. Even if it took 8 hours to tie one shoe, he was going to do it. And he was completely dependent at the front end. But over some time, he was able to tie his shoes. And he was able to gain some of his mobility back. Learned about an organization in La Jolla, San Diego County, that helped individuals with spinal cord injuries through exercise, something that he, as an ex-athlete, longed for again. That through this aggressive form of therapy and exercise, you might gain some of your mobility back. And he was able, with his brother living in Los Angeles, to do this thing for a couple of years, and got back his ability to walk in a walker, and take care of himself, which was what he was after. But now coming home, he realized he lives in Boston. He's a proud Bostonian, thinking also that Boston is one of the centers of health, and it doesn't have a place like this. He was angry and insistent that it needed one, and it could serve him and others like it. And that's where he was starting from. Wow. Just simply needing to fill a need, he created Journey Forward. And the reason I was contacted was he was having his first fundraiser back in Boston. And I joined him at that. Hearing the story, I said, fine, whatever he needs, I'll go back. And I've been, doing this every year for him. Because he's a true
really
hero.
Inspiring.
He is courage.
Yeah, I was going to say, over and above the specific injuries, just a very inspiring human being.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well,
now talk about, before we close here, I also want to talk about Christopher Knight Brands, because this is a new chapter for you, correct?
It's not exactly brand new anymore. We started Christopher Knight Home initially under Christopher Knight Brands, the holding entity, in 2011.
Okay.
And but it immediately got traction and grew. In part because of the sensible brilliance of the owners of the company who've licensed the brand, created the brand. A friend of mine from high tech, a business partner in a number of past entities, reached out to me, who I laughed at the time, because this guy, when he was in the computer industry, he had already laid off or laid aside his top secret career with the skunk works. So he's a physicist, and he was working in the computer realm because he wanted out of that area, and was a brilliant friend of mine. Now he was in the furniture space, and I kind of chuckled at that. And then lo and behold, a couple months after I chuckled, he's calling me. He said, listen, we have a need for a brand, and I think that you're the guy. And I'm going, you're crazy. What? But he pointed out that their company, which he was in, didn't start, but he got invited into, was looking. They started everybody selling furniture back in, at that time, back in the early 2000s, was selling furniture brick and mortar only, right? You go to a store. If it wasn't in the store, you looked in the catalog, and that's how you bought furniture. Though we had started becoming aware and practicing online purchases, it was mostly for things like stereos or other things that come in boxes, or things that could ship to you more readily. at this time, 2010, 2011, recognizing that the online idea of furniture sales is probably an area that needs focus. And though no one's doing it well, because it requires something deeper, the metadata that one is able to search for on a site for furniture needs to be specific. It's a longer criteria list than something else, because you're trying to make up for the lack of real physical and tactile response. You're also dealing with a population that has to get their head around the fact that this stuff is going to be shipped to them. Mm-hmm. You've got to also get your head around, as the company, how do you ship it to them? Mm-hmm. How do you make sure that it's something that arrives as the thing that they thought it was going to be, so that they don't want to ship it back, because it's an impossibility at that point to have a business if 50% of everything wants to go in the other direction. Mm-hmm. There were a few online companies that, and the one that comes to mind that did it first was Overstock. Which had the unfortunate name of Overstock, making people think that, in fact, they were selling other people's overstock. It wasn't. It was just the name of an online entity who happened to see a hole in the marketplace for furniture. They also did other things, jewelry and so forth, like Amazon would, but they focused on jewelry and furniture primarily. And that provided then a presentation of furniture that they would learn from, and it would ever grow, and made for the experience to be positive, more positive than others. Just throwing a picture up and telling you something about it, that wasn't nearly enough. So this company that imported and manufactured furniture that my friend worked for was looking at them to be sort of the focus for a new brand for them. And they were intending on getting out of the brick and mortar space for furniture sales, because they saw the future for furniture was going to be online, at least where they wanted to be, and that there was going to be a great deal of growth in that area. And that the reason for the brand was, and the reason for me being that brand was, that they needed somebody trustworthy. All comes back to being a Brady. Yeah. Being a Brady means that you're a member of everyone's family. Right. You're kind of invited to Thanksgiving dinner without even knowing the names of the family. and it's like a weird place to be, because all of a sudden people are acting to you in such a familiar fashion, and you don't even know who they are.
Yeah, but you're also very good at hosting, and I've watched the videos where you present the brand on your website, and you're very good at that.
The fact is that people did trust the resistance to pushing the button, to making that first purchase, to gain that experience, was the purpose behind the selection of me. Mm-hmm. And then I've always taken the position that I've got a lot to protect. When I was in the high-tech space and I was selling computer stuff, I knew that going through that door, oddly, the Brady's was never going to go away. It was there, but it probably opened that door more readily. It answered the phone more readily. Yeah. It gave me an audience more readily. But if I left a stench behind, it would be remembered more. Sure. It would, there was more. It could be a double-edged sword. So I couldn't. I had to be more careful and more concerned about making certain that what I state is true.
You have to make the family proud, and you're doing that. Now, talk about your feature documentary, True Love, the film.
You spoke earlier about this idea of, our society right now is at, sort of this sense of division between us and distrust and all, and there's an air that when seeing this opportunity come our way, I started a production company with a good friend, Phil Viardo, 3 years ago. And Phil and one of our producers became aware of a sensation on YouTube. At the time, I think she was 13. Her name was Callie Truelove. And she, I use the word suffer, and don't intend to. She has a chromosomal condition called Williams syndrome. I didn't know anything about Williams syndrome. But her popularity on YouTube was because of her nature, just because of her. She was a darling child, and also suffering from this thing called Williams syndrome. Learning about Williams syndrome and learning about her and learning about her story would also help bring attention to Williams syndrome. We wanted do her story. And the fact that her name was Truelove, that's her last name, Truelove.
What is the Williams syndrome? We have to tell people.
It's so I think it's a missing chromosomes on missing genes on chromosome 7, I believe. But ultimately, what it leads to is some children that are born with varying degrees of heart defects, some odd abnormalities in the face that render the individuals sometimes elf-like. Elfish, you will. But one of the really interesting aspects of it, and we explore through the movie, is that there's a behavior that these children have that is remarkably disarming, loving. It's just they have just a way to express themselves that is how do I don't want it to sound it's
There's
like
no way you can
the same thing a puppy does to you.
Just trusting.
Yes, you don't have any distrust, none whatsoever. It just warms your heart to be around them, and they're like that by and large to a person. And there's something about that missing gene, and quite off the subject is there's been some learning going on secondarily to Williams syndrome, but apparently dogs being from a canine from the wolf population seem to miss that same part.
Yeah, so maybe
the chromosome, and that there was some pack of dogs that missed these chromosomes that made it possible for them to live with people.
Wow.
Okay, so it's more like they're missing something that maybe keeps most of us alive, because it's an element that is necessary to keep us safe.
They could be a target for anyone wanting to do something a misdeed, and that's unfortunate. But I look at it and go, this has been going on for centuries. It's 1 out of 10,000 people. So, how many millions of people that is. It's interesting that we don't know anything about it because it's all around us. But in that these people also look like elfish and are like, sort of stories of, Elvis. I'm wondering, I wonder
that's where
if
it
that
comes
has something to do with it. But we explore through the movie her meeting. She gained a lot of fans virtually. But through it, she gets to travel and meet these people, meet others with Williams syndrome that she, to that point, had only met online, and get to know her community. And we get to know that community as well. And in fact, the movie is now on the festival circuit. And next month, actually not next month, next week, 2 weeks away from the Williams syndrome conference in Illinois, in Schaumburg. That will be premiering the movie.
Oh, wonderful. Congratulations.
Good for you. What a nice piece of work.
Well, we're going to wrap up the show now. I know you can find Chris on The Real Christopher Knight. Is that Instagram?
Yes.
And where would we find you on Facebook?
At The Real Christopher Knight as well.
Okay. And then the podcast page is The Real Brady Bros, BROS.
Anywhere podcasts are downloadable, you'll find us. Yeah, look for The Real Brady Bros, right? That's Barry and I pontificating about episodes. We use the episode recap kind of format to then launch into our recollections. Coming to us from Ed Mann. And we just want to thank you so much for joining us. We would love to continue the conversation with you on Instagram and Twitter, where we are at MediaPathPod, and on Facebook, where our show page is MediaPath Podcast, and our Facebook group is MediaPath with Fritz and Weezy Podcast Community. You can find full video podcast episodes loaded with bonus visual content on our YouTube channel, MediaPath Podcast. You can write to us at mediapathpodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please give us a nice rating in Apple Podcasts and talk about us on social media. You can sign up for our fun and dishy newsletter at mediapathpodcast.com. And we would love to thank our wonderful guest, Christopher Knight. Our team includes Dina Friedman, John Maddox, Sharon Bellio, Bill Filipiak, Thomas Hubble, Mason Brown, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox. I am Louise Planker here with Fritz Coleman and Christopher Knight. And we will see you along the media path. Thank you. I know I get a little long-winded. I'm a little long-winded. Thank you. If we ever do another Brady something or other, we should do another show. Oh, I would love that.